Rick was the star. His many sons have been broadcasters. I know I'm taking you down memory lane, but I remember sitting in my house in the black and white TV. You were the best player. Jeff Mullins second. Jamal Wilkes, Clifford Ray was your center. Butch Beard, Derek Dickey, and I Have No Life. I remember all of it on a black and white TV.
It's probably very sad commentary, actually. Yeah. But we had actually George Johnson. We had a two-headed center. Yeah, with Clifford Ray and George Johnson.
Yeah.
And, George was instrumental in us winning the seventh game against Chicago in the finals of the West.
You remember what was also significant about that series, Al Attles and Casey Jones.
Yep, two first black head coaches.
Yep, I remember that as a kid.
Nobody talked about it or even cared about it.
But it was, Hall of Famer Rick Barry, 8-time NBA champ. I've always said you were the Larry Bird before Larry Bird. In my lifetime, you were the forward who shot like a guard. And I've always considered you one of the great players of all time. This is interesting. There are players who are valuable. Rick, you were a leader. You were an emotional leader. You were a physical leader. You were a points leader. Okay, you were a vocal, verbal player. There are players that are great that aren't leaders.
Oh, that's true. There's no question.
Steph is 20-0 in the last 20 without KD. KD without Steph is 11-9. Can we make the comment that KD is a remarkable talent, but he's not really an alpha? And not necessarily a leader.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And actually, I think he's become a better player going to the Warriors. In fact, in his career, when he first came out, I actually remember sitting with Jerry West watching him when he was at Texas. And we both said, wow, this kid's going to be a heck of an NBA basketball player. But when he came in, he wasn't a facilitator. He wasn't someone that was helping to make his teammates better. He's a great talent, but he's become much better at that. And I think playing with the Warriors has helped him become even better at it. But there's a big difference between learning how to do that and being the guy that leads your team and gets everybody together and does the kind of things that Steph is capable of doing. Taking nothing away from KD, I think he's one of the truly remarkable players. I mean, I have a picture that I carry around and show people when he was the MVP of the series, which I was happy for him because everybody criticized him for making the move, and I respected the fact that he wanted to be a champion. And not only was he a champion, he got to be MVP of the series. And I'm standing next to him. He dwarfs me. He's a 7-footer. It's crazy that he does the things that he does at his size. People don't have a true understanding and appreciation for that.
2 years ago, I'm at a Laker game on the sidelines, and it was the first time I'd been within a foot of him. And I looked at his feet, and I told my friend, I said, he's a center. He shoots like a two-guard.
Yeah, he's amazing. I mean, the thing about the Warriors is that the Warriors have three indefensible players. They have three guys who can all kill you from the three. They all can go to the basket, and they're all great free throw shooters. There is not a chance in the world that you can defend that when you play against them. You have to pray that two of their guys are having off games to have a chance. And the great example of that is last year in the playoffs. Clay was struggling in the first two series. The other two guys were playing great. They swept without Clay.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's such a difficult thing to beat them. But the problem now is they're not healthy. I'm really concerned about them. They're going to have a difficult time in the playoffs, trying to continue to advance, to win. Even if Steph were to come back, what are the chances of him being at the level he needs to be in order to help him?
Rick Barry, Hall of Famer, joining us. Rick is the coach of the Ball Hogs in the Big Three. He was here for the Big Three draft last night and had one of the very funny moments actually putting on the shades last night. It was very funny. Let me go to this. Nobody wants to be called injury prone. Injuries now are part of sports. Athletes are like violins now. They're so finely tuned. It feels like I'm getting more injuries than less. Kyrie Irving and Steph Curry. I think part of the narrative, to be honest, is they're a little injury prone. Rick, dynasties all end quicker, including yours in Golden State. It can be a trade, an injury, vanity, ego. Shaq and Kobe could have lasted forever. It didn't. The big three in Boston, Rondo started not getting along. I've said with the Warriors, it's not going to last 6 years. There's going to be an injury and there's going to be an ego somewhere. I look at Steph and I say to myself, Rick, that's it.
Yeah, Bill, he's always had the situation with the injuries, especially with the ankles, and it's sad. But you're absolutely right. It's very difficult to maintain. That's why when you look at some of the dynasties, for them to be able to maintain that, for the Boston Celtics or what they did, the Lakers over the years that they did it, San Antonio's been incredibly consistent for a long, long time. But even it's not like you totally dominate and you're winning 3, 4, 5, 6 in a row. What the Celtics did was just totally remarkable. But it's luck. It's so much luck. And again, in our case, I tell you right now, we didn't win the championship the next year in '76 because they made a trade. They traded Butch Beard, who was, I think, nobody probably knows the name Butch Beard.
He was number 9, wasn't he?
Yeah, Butch Beard was our point guard, okay? And Butch Beard was the guy that made sure things got done the right way. And the sad part about it is, and I know this is a fact, they traded him away because the general manager couldn't stand dealing with his wife. True. Absolutely. They get him away, and they said, we're going to have some other player. We were not the same team. Even though we won more games, losing Butch Beard, to me, was the reason why we didn't win.
We
won because of Clifford Ray coming to our team. Clifford Ray was the guy that pulled everybody together.
6'8" center, tough guy.
Yeah, 6'9", and he was like 2% body fat or something. But we're dear friends. We fish all the time together, and he was the guy. Love him like a brother. So that little thing, that one trade, if it wasn't for Butch Beard, there's no way that we don't win the championship the next year, because we wound up giving away the series to Phoenix.
Yep.
To their credit, they took advantage of it. They got hosed up in Boston on the triple overtime, which I was broadcasting.
Yes.
I chose to ignore his request, Richie Powers, the official. How does an official ignore the request of a timeout from a player right in his face? I mean, he should have been fired. He should have been fired. And I was with Mindy Rudolph in the booth doing it at the game. And he thought he did the right thing. I said, you got to be kidding me. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that goes on that has to be nipped in the bud.
Yeah.
I heard something else that you talked about earlier, and I'm with you on this. There's no way that you can compare what Russell Westbrook did. And what he did was remarkable. I don't care. You're a guard, and you get triple-double for a season. That's remarkable. But the difference is that Oscar Robertson just played. Westbrook was trying to get triple-doubles.
No question.
Okay, and that's the difference between the two. And the other one, and this is the factor that nobody's ever talked about, and this is a dramatic factor. The last time I looked when he got his triple-doubles, he didn't play 9 games against Wilt Chamberlain, against Bill Russell, against Nate Thurman, against Walt Bellamy. This guy's going to the basket dunking. That never would have happened if he played against those guys.
But you got to remember this, too, is that the possessions are up. I tell people, Rick, it's like football. Joe Montana never threw for 4,000 yards. Blake Bortles did last year. So that's no longer impressive. Markelle Fultz came off the bench 2 nights ago, played 25 minutes and got a triple-double. I'm over it. The possessions, the pace of play.
Well,
Rick.
we played up pace. We played a lot of pace. We scored 120 points back in my day. It was up and down.
You were on a great shooting team. You guys were rare. Mullen could shoot. Wilkes could shoot. You were the best arguable
but
shooter.
I'm talking about when I first came in the league before I played with those. In 1965, when I came in the league, we scored 120 points regularly. I mean, it was that people seem to forget that it was a high pace game, fast paced game, up and down, scoring a lot of points. That's what it was, and it was a whole different philosophy, though. It was funnel everything to your big guys and make Nathan block the shots. Now you never want anybody to get to the basket. You don't want your big men leading the league in shot blocking. That means your defense sucks.
Right. Rick Barry's joining us, Hall of Famer. You know, I was talking. You know, we have made. David Stern was a very tough negotiator. I know people that negotiated with him. He was a yeller, a screamer. He'd call you. He'd intimidate you. Even if you tanked, you called it something. It was the process. He would call sports editors locally and argue about stories. I know 2 people at ESPN that negotiated with him. He was intimidating. Oh, yeah. If you tanked, you better have an argument that you're not tanking. So Adam Silver, more pro player, more reticent, a little more meek, becomes commissioner. We have 8 teams tanking because nobody's afraid of Adam Silver. We have a major issue in this league. I have to Google players now. I don't know who they are. Doesn't this bother you? Isn't this an integrity issue?
Yeah, I have a real problem with that because, first of all, I don't think the teams are intentionally tanking. I would have no respect at all for any player that would go out there and not give his best effort every time. I mean, you're going to tell me to go out there and not play hard. We don't really want to win. I don't think they're saying that to anybody. And so if that's the case, then you got to throw a lot of that on the players.
Well, no. Here's what I don't. Players are, what's happening is minor injuries, please sit. We don't want to risk it.
Right.
You have rosters like Memphis. I can't name 9 players. G League calls up. Extensive. When players get marginally hurt, you would have played through it.
And I don't have a problem with that, trying to develop some guys, evaluate them, and do some things like that if you know you're out of the playoff. I don't have a problem. What they have to do is change the draft, okay? What it should be is that the team that has the best chance of getting the top draft pick should be the team that just misses out on the playoffs.
Agreed. I totally agree with that. Denver Nuggets should have the number 1 pick.
They should have the number. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Give an incentive to try to be as good as you can be in order to enhance your chances to do things.
Because, by the way, we do have absolute proof, Rick. The Celtics didn't have to be awful to rebuild. You don't have to do Phoenix. You don't. Boston has always been reasonable. They hired the right coach. They bring over some veteran players. They've been in a total rebuild for 5 years. They're still viable.
All right, I'll give you my evaluation of this. In pro sports, the team sports, the three major sports, the most critical elements to have success: who do you draft? Who do you get in trades? Who do you get in free agency? It's all about your choice of players. Then you hope that you get a coach that doesn't screw things up.
Right.
But you have to get the right talent. Most teams don't evaluate talent very well. I always said this, and I know that I tick off a lot of people, and I never mention any names, but there are some guys out there who are looking at talent who wouldn't know talent if it walked up and bit him in the butt.
I agree with you.
And that's the biggest problem. You have to find the right talent. And so that should be their biggest emphasis, is having someone who can go out there and recognize a kid that has the ability. I can watch a kid in 5 minutes and tell you whether or not I want to see anything else more about him, because the one thing you have to look for: does he have a natural feel for the game? You cannot teach that. I can teach you other things. You can teach somebody to become a better shooter. You can teach somebody to learn some of the other things that they should be taught when they're youngsters. That's one of the other problems, because I'm starting up the Rick Barry Basketball School in conjunction with a guy named Jim Oleos, as award-winning coach with a program for kids, girls and boys 5 to 9, fundamentals. Award-winning program on character development, on fundamental development, on schoolwork, trying to give them a chance in life. But what it's going to help is those kids that are in there that have natural ability and talent athletically are going to have a chance to have a foundation to build on, so that when they move up to the junior NBA and some of those other programs, they now can get more advanced things, but they're going to have a chance to fully develop their abilities and their talents. Right now, there are guys playing in the NBA who will never be as good as they should be, because they don't have that fundamental background and that foundation to build on.
Totally agree.
This is what has to be done, and change the face of basketball and start creating better players who know what to do with the amazing ability they have. I'm not a big fan of AAU basketball. I think that I think a lot of these guys with a lot of injuries, I think they're breaking them down. My son, I try to keep him out of it. My son Canyon, who's had a nice big 31-point game overseas, they got to get him back here because he can play. Anyway, I kept him away from it as much as possible, because you go to a weekend AAU, you play on a Friday night, you'll play a game, sometimes maybe even 2 games. They're going to play 3 or 4 games on Saturday, a couple games on Sunday.
You break down.
That's exactly right. These young kids, you're breaking these kids down.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.